Hey everyone, I am Xiaoyu, the palace maid who loves gossip the most. Today's Rebirth story is seriously one epic scene after another, from start to finish. I suggest you all grab some snacks and buckle up. Let's dive right in. March in the capital city should have been the season when spring worms and flowers bloom. But in the reflection courtyard where I lived, there was only bone-chilling coldness. The old locust tree in the courtyard hadn't yet sprouted new buds. Its bare branches against the leaden sky looked like struggling hands. Yet, just one courtyard away at the main hall of the general's manor, drums and gongs resounded, red silk filled the sky, a scene of jubilant celebration. Wearing plain white night clothes, I sat quietly by the window, listening to that clamor, my lips curving into an icy arc. My husband, Great Xi's Northern Pacification General Lu Changfeng, returned triumphant today. And also today was taking an equal wife, my personal maid Chinger, came in carrying a bowl of fetal calming medicine. Her eyes rimmed red, her voice choked with tears. "Madam, please at least eat something. You haven't eaten all day, the child in your belly can't take it." In my womb was already 3 months of flesh and blood. I raised my hand, gently caressing my still flat lower abdomen, the heart-piercing pain from my past life seeming to sweep over me once again. Yes, past life, I had already died once before. 3 days before Lu Changfeng returned in triumph, I was reborn from the great fire that burned away all my hope, returning to the present. In my past life, I was foolish and naive. When Lu Changfeng brought back that delicate woman Lin Ruer who had saved his life on the battlefield and said he wanted to give her a title, I cried, I made scenes, I even threatened him with my own death. But what I got in return was Lu Changfeng's increasingly cold gaze and the words, "Why can't you just be more magnanimous?" He said that Lin Ruer injured her body saving him and could never bear children again in this life, so he had to take responsibility for her. He said that the only one he loved in his heart was me, that marrying her was only to repay a debt of gratitude, and told me to rest assured and just be his general's wife. I believed him, suppressing my disgust. I watched him welcome Lin Ruer through the door with the ceremony of an equal wife, watched them appear together before me as a perfect couple, tender and affectionate. I thought my concessions could bring family harmony, never imagining it was the beginning of my descent into hell. Less than a month after Lin Ruer entered the household, she schemed to make me miscarry, and my unformed child turned into a pool of blood. Lu Changfeng didn't ask any questions, only believed Lin Ruer's tears, confining me to Jingzi courtyard, saying I had a vicious heart and was unfit to be a mother. Not long after, my father, Great Xi's wealthiest man, Shen Wanshan, was framed by a letter of collusion with the enemy personally delivered by Lu Changfeng. The entire Shen family was executed, and our century-old foundation was completely devoured by him and his so-called benefactor. And I, forced to drink a drug that made me mute, had my hand and foot tendons severed, and was thrown into this quiet reflection courtyard to barely cling to life. In the end, it was an accidental fire that burned me alive. As the flames consumed my body, I heard Lin Ruer laughing smugly in my ear. "Sister, did you really think I couldn't bear children?" Changfeng said that once I give birth to the legitimate eldest son, everything in the general's manor will be ours. You and your Shen family's money were merely making wedding clothes for us all along. The overwhelming hatred allowed me to be reborn. In this life, I will never cry again. Tears are the most useless thing in this world. Chinger, pour out the medicine. My voice was calm, without a trace of emotion. Chinger froze. "Madam," I said. "Pour it out," I repeated, my eyes cold as ice. "Then go to the vanity and help me with my makeup." Chinger didn't dare ask again and quickly fetched my most luxurious set of red gold and ruby hair ornaments, carefully pinning them in my hair. In the bronze mirror reflected a pale yet still stunningly beautiful face, with eyes that once brimmed with love, now reduced to lifeless, icy pools. Once my grooming was complete, I stood up and smoothed out the bright red brocade palace gown I was wearing. Let's go, it is time to congratulate the general. In my past life, I claimed illness and refused to see him, and was scolded for being petty. In this life, I am going to go. I want to watch with my own eyes how this pair of cheating scumbags put on their act of undying love in front of me. When I appeared in the main hall, all the noisy chatter came to an abrupt halt. The eyes of all the guests fell on me in unison. Some showed sympathy, some pity, but most were gloating, eager to watch the drama unfold. Lu Changfeng wore a crimson wedding outfit for military officers, standing tall with an exceptionally handsome bearing. He was carefully supporting Lin Ru beside him. That woman wore the same style of bright red wedding dress as mine. Her face bearing a shy, yet smug smile, her belly slightly swollen. She was pregnant too. What a move repaying a life-saving debt with marriage. What a move shotgun wedding with a secret pregnancy. In my past life, I was completely fooled by such clumsy lies. Seeing me, Lu Changfeng's brows immediately furrowed, a flash of displeasure in his eyes. Ning, why did you come out? Didn't I tell you to rest in the courtyard and take care of your pregnancy? Lin Ru beside him immediately put on a tearful expression, leaning weakly against Lu Changfeng's embrace, her voice as thin as a mosquito's hum. Sister, are you blaming me? It is all Ruer's fault. If it wasn't to save the general, I wouldn't have... General. Why don't we just call it off? Ruer doesn't ask for status. Look what a performance. With just a few words, she molded herself into this great image of someone who doesn't seek status and endures everything, making me, the legitimate wife, look aggressive and ungrateful instead. Lu Changfeng's heart ached for her as expected. He patted Lin Ruer's hand and comforted her gently. Don't talk nonsense. How could I, Lu Changfeng, be that kind of heartless and fickle man today? I will definitely give you a proper status. After saying that, he turned to look at me, his tone carrying a commanding air. Ning, Ruer will be your younger sister from now on. You two must get along harmoniously. Come, according to the rules, offer Ruer a cup of tea. As soon as these words came out, the entire hall erupted in uproar, making the legitimate wife offer tea to the concubine wife. This wasn't just humiliation anymore. This was viciously trampling my face, Shen Yuanning's face, and the entire Shen family's face under his feet. I laughed under everyone's shocked gazes. I walked step by step, slowly approaching them. I didn't look at that cup of tea that had been prepared long ago. Instead, I took something out from my sleeve. A piece of paper filled with writing, Lu Changfeng. I looked into his eyes and said word by word, "This isn't tea, this is a divorce document." Those 3 words, like a clap of thunder, exploded in the festive hall. Lu Changfeng's face instantly turned ashen. Shen Yuanning, have you had enough of this nonsense? What day is today? Do you have to make everyone laugh at our Lu family? A joke? I let out a light laugh, unfolding the divorce document in my hand and holding it up high. From the moment you decided to welcome this woman of unknown origins through your door, your Lu family has already become a joke. Wait, girl, hold on a second. On his big wedding day, you wore a bright red brocade palace gown, a gold inlaid jeweled headdress, and catwalked your way in. Whipping out a divorce agreement on the spot, I am giving this entrance full marks. Now this is what you call an effortless dimensional crush. Look at the contrast that Lin Ruer is currently leaning in his arms playing the delicate damsel. So basically one's acting in a melodrama while the other's shooting a blockbuster business war epic. They're not even on the same Channel Peak Showdown material. You, General Lu, need not be angry. I cut him off, my gaze sweeping across his stiff face. I know. You rely on that bit of military power in your hands and have never taken the Shen family seriously. You think that I, Shen Yuanning, cannot survive without you, but you seem to have forgotten that 70% of your northern garrison army's provisions and military pay are currently supplied by the Shen family. My voice wasn't loud, but it was enough for everyone present to hear clearly. Lu Changfeng's pupils contracted sharply. I continued, also your great victory this time, known as burning the linked camps, supposedly crushed the barbarian tribes. But as far as I know, near the barbarian Chanyu's main tent, there is an underground river that leads directly to Qingfeng Mountain. If someone were to inform the barbarian remnants of this right now, tell me how much of your enormous achievement would be left. This was my advantage from being reborn. In my previous life, Lu Changfeng let the barbarian Chanyu escape because of this very oversight, leading to renewed warfare at the border, and to cover up his own mistake, he actually pushed the blame onto my Shen family, claiming the Shen family colluded with the enemy and leaked military secrets. Lu Changfeng stared at me intently, his eyes full of shock and disbelief. He couldn't understand how I, a secluded woman of the inner chambers, could know these top military secrets. You, what do you want? His voice carried a hint of wariness for the first time. It is simple. I gently placed that divorce document on the desk in front of him. Sign it, I, Shen Yuening, request to leave this marriage myself. From now on, you and I will have nothing to do with each other's marriages. All ties severed. Don't even think about it, Lu Changfeng roared. He couldn't let me go. Letting me go would be the same as letting go of the Shen family, that gold mine. Oh, I raised an eyebrow, my tone full of mockery. Fine, if you don't sign, then I'll have no choice but to send someone to the courier station outside the city right now to deliver a letter to the Minister of War. And have a good chat about this underground river matter. General Lu, do you want your beauty or do you want your brilliant future? Choose for yourself. The entire hall fell deathly silent. Everyone was shocked by this stunning reversal. No one had expected that the always gentle and virtuous general's wife would have such thunderous methods. Lu Changfeng's face turned green, then white, his chest heaving violently. He looked at me, then at Lin Ruer beside him with her terror-streaked face, and finally, as if all his strength had been drained away. He knew that what I said I would do. He didn't dare gamble, but he was even more unwilling to give in. He remained in a standoff, trying to make one last struggle. But I had no more patience to continue this act with him. I turned around and curtsied to the dumbstruck old Madame Lu in the hall. Mother-in-law, this daughter-in-law is unfilial and will take her leave first. With that, I walked out without looking back. Behind me came Lu Changfeng's voice, suppressing his rage yet carrying a hint of his self-righteous sense of control. He said to the butler, Yuening is still angry at me. Ask her what she wants, gold, silver, jewels, silks, and satins. As long as she asks, satisfy her every request. But watch the courtyard gate closely. Don't let her step 1 foot outside the general's manor. Hearing these words, I sneered inwardly. Lu Changfeng, in the end, you still don't understand me. Do you think what I, Shen Yuening, want are those material possessions that you can't take with you in life or death? Do you think a cage can trap me? How naive. That night, in the dead of night, I changed into a sleek set of night clothes. Chinger had already packed all the property deeds and banknotes from in the mansion, along with those priceless dowry treasures my mother left behind, into several light bundles. Madam, everything is ready. I nodded, looking at this girl who had grown up with me since childhood. Chinger, are you truly determined to come with me? The road ahead is uncertain. It might be very hard. Chinger shook her head firmly. Wherever Madam goes, Chinger goes. I don't want to stay in this man-eating place for even a moment longer. I said no more and took out a fire starter from my chest. Burn it. I looked at this courtyard where I had lived for 3 years, which had also imprisoned me for 3 years, without the slightest attachment. Burn this place, and burn Shen Yuening's past along with it. Raging flames soon devoured the entire Jingzi courtyard. Chinger and I, taking advantage of the chaos in the mansion from firefighting, quietly slipped out through the dog hole in the back courtyard that had been cleared long ago. Outside, the Shen family's carriage had been waiting for quite some time. In the bridal chamber of the general's manor, Lu Changfeng had just finished comforting the frightened Lin Ruer and was preparing to enjoy his wedding night. The butler came rolling and crawling in, his face full of terror and covered in soot, his voice trembling uncontrollably. General, something terrible has happened. Lu Changfeng frowned impatiently. What are you panicking about? The butler dropped to his knees with a thud, shouting with a sobbing voice. Jingzi courtyard caught fire. The flames were too big. We couldn't save anyone. Lu Changfeng shot to his feet, his heart inexplicably tightening as an unprecedented panic surged through him. Where is my wife? Where is Shen Yuening? The butler trembled, kowtowing, his voice filled with despair. Madam is gone. The entire courtyard burned down. Not even a body was left behind. The fire burned for an entire night. Lu Changfeng stood before the ruins of Jingzi courtyard, his glaringly red wedding robe covered in ash, the morning light illuminating his handsome face in a deathly pallor. The air was filled with the pungent smell of charred wood, mixed with an indescribable, sickly sweet scent, as if of burnt flesh and blood. Beneath his feet were broken walls and rubble. The remains of tables and chairs burned beyond recognition. Really, nothing was found. His voice was hoarse, as if scraped by sandpaper. The butler kneeling behind him trembled like chaff, reporting to the general, we've searched everywhere inside and out. Aside from a few burnt pieces of jewelry, there is nothing. The fire was too intense, madam. I am afraid she's already been reduced to ashes. Reduced to ashes? These 4 words were like a red-hot iron poker, ruthlessly stabbing into Lu Changfeng's heart. He actually felt a trace of unfamiliar, sharp, stinging pain. He recalled the look in Shen Yuanning's eyes yesterday in the main hall, so cold, so resolute. Without a shred of attachment, he had thought it was just the usual tactics women employ of crying and making a fuss. A ploy to gain his attention, to compete with Lin Ruer for his favor. That is why he had let her leave, even giving such orders to the butler. He thought he had everything under control. As long as he gave her a little sweetness, Shen Yuanning would obediently return to his side, just like after any quarrel in the past 3 years. But he never expected she would be this unyielding. A wave of inexplicable irritation and regret surged through him. It wasn't that he didn't love her, it was just that Ruer needed him more. He had envisioned countless possible futures, but never once imagined it would end like this. Shen Yuanning was dead. What about the Shen family's wealth that rivaled a nation? And how was he supposed to explain this to the Emperor General? A delicate voice came from behind. Lin Ruer, draped in a marten fur coat and supported by a maid, walked over like a willow swaying in the wind. Her beautiful eyes brimmed with tears. Sister, why couldn't she think it through? It is all my fault. If it weren't for me, sister wouldn't have. As she spoke, her body went limp, about to faint. Lu Changfeng instinctively reached out to catch her in his arms. The slight regret that had just risen in him was instantly replaced by the soft, fragrant warmth in his embrace and his worry for her. Ruer, why did you come out? It is windy here. I was worried about the general. Lin Ruer leaned against him, hand on her lower abdomen, pitifully fragile. General, my stomach hurts a bit. Quickly send for a physician. Lu Changfeng immediately panicked, scooped Lin Ruer up in his arms horizontally, and strode swiftly toward the main courtyard, never looking back at the ruins again. That slight sting in his heart was quickly covered over by his anxiety for Lin Ruer and the legitimate eldest son in her womb. He told himself that Shen Yuanning's death was just an accident. It was her own narrow-mindedness, her inability to think it through. He didn't know that at this very moment, his deceased wife, whom he thought had turned to ash, was sitting peacefully in the most luxurious study of the Shen family's main residence, leisurely savoring the newly served pre-rain Longjing tea. Unlike the gloom and misery at the general's manor, the Shen family estate was quiet and solemn. I changed out of my disheveled night clothes and put on a wide-sleeved long robe in dark black with subtle patterns and gold trim. My long hair was tied up with a simple ink jade hairpin, making me look like a refined and noble young master from an aristocratic family. From today on, Shen Yuanning is dead. The one alive is the new head of the Shen family, Mr. Ning. Miss Uncle Fu, the head steward of the Shen family, stood before me with tears streaming down his aged face. You finally returned, ever since the master learned that Lu Changfeng was going to take a second wife. He was so furious, he fell ill and couldn't get up. Now, Uncle Fu, I set down my teacup, my voice calm. I'll find a way to deal with Father's illness. From now on, everyone in the mansion will address me as Mr. Ning. To outsiders, say that I am Father's adopted son who returned from traveling abroad, here to temporarily assume the position of family head. Uncle Fu froze for a moment, then nodded firmly. This old servant understands. The Shen family's wealth attracts too much attention. If I, a dead woman, were to control such massive fortune, it would surely invite countless wolves to spy on us. A Mr. Ning who appears out of nowhere would instead better intimidate the petty troublemakers and make things easier to handle. Summon the shopkeepers of the Shen family's 7 major trading houses. Half an hour from now, have them meet me in the conference hall. Yes? Sir, half an hour later, in the conference hall, 7 head shopkeepers who normally commanded great influence in capital cities' business circles, now all stood respectfully, with their hands lowered, not daring to breathe too loudly as they looked at the excessively young Mr. Ning seated in the head position. They had all heard about everything that happened in the mansion toward this new master who took command in a crisis. Their hearts were filled with doubts and speculation. I didn't say any nonsense and directly threw an account book onto the table. This is the record of all military supplies the Shen family provided to the Northern Garrison Army over the past 3 years. Starting today, cut off all supplies to the Northern Garrison Army. Not a single grain of rice, not an inch of cloth can be sent over anymore. As soon as these words came out, everyone present was shocked. Manager Wang, who was in charge of military supplies, hurriedly stepped forward and said urgently, "Sir, please reconsider. This is business with the court. If we unilaterally cut off supply, I am afraid we'll bring great disaster upon ourselves." I let out a cold laugh and looked up at him. "Manager Wang, you seem to have forgotten that what the Shen family signed with the Northern Garrison Army was a living contract. The contract clearly states that if General Liu fails to fulfill his promise to take good care of the Shen family's legitimate daughter Shen Yuening, the Shen family has the right to terminate the contract at any time. Now that Shen Yuening is dead, this contract is naturally void." Only then did everyone suddenly realize. So the young lady, no, the sir, had already laid out a backup plan long ago. Not only must we cut off supply, my fingers lightly tapped on the tabletop, making dull sounds. I also want you to immediately send people to rush to Yunzhou, Liangzhou, and Shuozhou at full speed. And at any cost, buy up all the wound medicine, hemostatic herbs, and refined iron ore on the market. Buy as much as you can. In my previous life, I knew that within half a month, the remnants of the barbarian tribes would launch a crazy counterattack on these 3 provinces under the leadership of their escaped Chanyu. By then, the prices of these things would triple daily, and they'd be worth a fortune, but impossible to find. I am going to make sure Lu Changfeng not only has no grain to use, but also no medicine to heal with and no iron to forge. But sir, this requires an enormous amount of silver. Another shopkeeper said hesitantly. I pulled out a stack of land deeds and banknotes from my sleeve, the portion I had brought out from the general's manor, and pushed them in front of them. When I married into the Liu family, my dowry included 36 shops, 8,000 acres of fertile land, and these 500,000 taels in banknotes. Now that I am dead, these things should naturally be reclaimed by the Shen family. Furthermore, I changed my tone, my gaze turning sharp. When Lu Changfeng was building the general's manor, he borrowed 300,000 taels of silver from the Shen family's bank under my name, with the agreement to repay it in 3 years. Now the deadline has arrived. Send someone to the general's manor to collect the debt. I am going to let him know that what he ate of mine, he'll not only have to spit back out, but with principal and interest. The shopkeepers looked at the enormous wealth on the table, then at my strategic command and decisive killing intent, and the last trace of doubt in their hearts vanished into thin air. They all bowed together, their voices filled with awe. "We will follow your orders, sir, after handling family affairs." I still have an even more important move to make. 3 days later, on Zhuke Avenue, the most prosperous street in the capital city, a club called Jingxiu Hui quietly opened for business. This club was not open to men, only receiving noblewomen and young ladies from the capital. Inside the club, there were not only the latest styles of silk and satin, the most precious jewelry, but also perfumers invited from the western regions and embroiderers invited from Jiangnan. I even set up private rooms specifically for the ladies to review account books and discuss business. In the male-dominated Great Chuai, this was an unheard of thing. As soon as Jingxiu Hui opened, it immediately became the hottest topic among the noble ladies' circles in the capital city. On opening day, I, under the identity of Mr. Ning, invited several noblewomen with considerable influence in the capital city, including the wife of the Minister of Personnel and the wife of the Vice Minister of Revenue, to come and taste tea. After 3 rounds of tea, the wife of the Minister of Personnel brought up as if unintentionally, "Speaking of which, it is such a pity. That wife of the general who pacifies the north, I've met her a few times. She was truly a gentle and virtuous good girl. How could she just..." I timely showed a perfectly measured sadness and sighed softly. "What is gone is gone. It is just pitiful for that old friend of mine, her sincere heart given to the wrong person. For her husband, she drained her family's fortune clean. But in the end, she got a fate of favoring the concubine and destroying the wife, and was ultimately burned beyond recognition in a fire. And the one who started it all now enjoys honor and prestige. It truly chills the heart." I didn't name names, but everyone present was sharp as a tack. How could they not understand? For a moment, sighs and murmurs filled the private room. I've long heard that Lin Woman's background was shady, but I never imagined she'd be such a seductive vixen. Exactly. His first wife's body is barely cold. And General Lu still has the mood to accompany his new lover to see the doctor and care for her pregnancy. How utterly heartless and disloyal. The Shen family really hit a stroke of bad luck, raising a daughter just to be the Lu family's money bag. This was exactly the effect I wanted. Gossip and rumors. They're the deadliest invisible weapons. At the same time, life for Lu Changfeng and Lin Ruer began to turn into complete chaos. Lin Ruer had thought that marrying into the general's manor would mean living a life of lavish spending, but when she got her hands on the accounts of the mansion, she was completely dumbfounded. The ledger was empty. Not only that, the clerk from the Shen family's bank had already shown up at the gates of the general's manor with a 300,000 taels debt. Notice making a scene that everyone knew about. Oh my god, she opens the ledger and inside is air. Capital AIR, Sister Lin Ruer. You thought you were marrying into the general's manor, but actually you married into a fancy renovated empty shell. And there are debt collectors blocking the door. This is what they call taking over a negative asset. Usually putting on that sickly, delicate persona while dating. But at the critical moment, the ledger slaps you awake. My CPU is fried. Lu Changfeng was overwhelmed and frantic. He initially wanted to seek help from the Shen family, but was told that old Master Shen was gravely ill and the household was being managed by a mysterious Mr. Ning. This Mr. Ning refused to see any outside visitors. Only then did he belatedly realize that what Shen Yuening had taken away wasn't just her dowry. She had also pulled out the last pillar supporting the glamorous facade of the entire general's manor. Without the financial support of the Shen family, his meager military merit stipend was nowhere near enough to sustain life in this vast capital city. Lin Ruer began crying and making scenes, complaining that the household's budget was worse than even an ordinary wealthy merchant's, Lu Changfeng. Irritated by her nagging and already facing gossip and judgment from his colleagues at court over the rumors surrounding Shen Yuening's death, grew increasingly gloomy. The first crack between them had quietly appeared. Meanwhile, I sat by the window on the third floor of Splendid Pavilion, watching the bustling traffic below, a cold smile playing at the corners of my lips. Chinger draped a cloak over my shoulders and said in a low voice, "Sir, everything has been arranged. The medicinal herbs you had us buy up earlier have now quintupled in price. And many people are trying to buy them from us at high prices." I picked up my teacup and gently blew away the foam. "Don't sell. Wait until Lu Changfeng is at the end of his rope. Wait until border conflicts flare up again. Wait until he comes crawling to beg me. Lu Changfeng." Lin Ruer, your nightmare has only just begun half a month later. An urgent military report delivered by express courier exploded like thunder across the capital city. The remnants of the barbarian tribe, led by their escaped chieftain, made a comeback, successively breaking through 3 fortified passes in Yunzhou and Liangzhou, with their forces pointing directly at the heartland of the Central Plains. When the news arrived, both the court and the public were shaken. The emperor on the dragon throne flew into a rage, threw the memorial right there in court, and ordered General of pacifying the North Lu Changfeng to immediately mobilize troops and set out on a punitive expedition to atone for his crimes. If he failed to recapture the lost cities and expel the barbarians within 1 month, he should bring his head back. This imperial edict, like a death warrant, nailed Lu Changfeng firmly to the pillar of shame. The general's manor at this moment had long since lost its former glory, ever since the Shen family cut off their support and then came to collect the debt of 300,000 taels. The entire mansion's operations had ground to a halt. To maintain a facade of dignity, Lu Changfeng sold off more than half of the antiques and calligraphy in the mansion, and even the old madam's treasured jewelry pieces were sent to the pawn shop. But this money was merely a drop in the bucket compared to the enormous military expenses for the upcoming expedition. In the study, Lu Changfeng slammed his fist on the desk, and the fine rosewood table let out a painful groan. His eyes were bloodshot, blue stubble sprouted from his chin, and he looked like a ferocious beast trapped in a cage, violent yet helpless. Provisions aren't ready, military pay hasn't been issued, and there's not even a bit of medicine for the wounded. How am I supposed to fight this battle? By filling it with my soldiers' lives. He roared at a group of helpless deputy generals. Allen Deputy General braced himself and stepped forward. "General, the subordinate went to ask around. Right now, all the wound medicine and refined iron ore in the capital city have been monopolized by a mysterious merchant surnamed Ning." We sent people to make contact, but the other party said they'll only negotiate with someone who can make decisions. Mr. Ning? Lu Changfeng's brows knotted into a tight knot. This name had been thundering through the capital city lately. Everyone knew he had the Shen family backing him. This was clearly aimed at him. A humiliating rage rose in Lu Changfeng's heart. Shen Yuaning had just died, and her Shen family was already so eager to kick him while he was down. Just then, Lin Ruer walked in gracefully, carrying a bowl of ginseng soup. She dismissed everyone and gently persuaded General, "Don't get angry and hurt yourself. I've already thought of a solution." Seeing her, Lu Changfeng's irritable mood calmed down a bit. "What solution do you have? My maternal family still has some modest assets." Lin Ruer brought the ginseng soup to his lips, her eyes flashing with calculated light. "If we sell them, we can scrape together 100,000 taels. It is just General. Now that in the mansion expenses exceed income and sister passed so suddenly, shouldn't the seal of household management also?" Before he could finish speaking, Lu Changfeng smacked the soup bowl out of her hand with a loud smack. The scalding ginseng soup spilled all over Lin Ruer. She cried out in shock, looking in disbelief at the man before her with his savage expression. At a time like this, all you can think about is your household seal. 100,000 taels. What the hell can 100,000 taels do? Buy you an outfit. Lu Changfeng's patience had finally run out. "Didn't you say back then that you didn't care about fame or fortune, that you only wanted to stay by my side? What now, the moment I run into trouble? All you can think about is this petty bullshit." This was the first time Lu Changfeng had ever lost his temper with her like this. Lin Ruer's face instantly turned deathly pale, tears streaming down her face. I was just trying to help ease your worries, General, and now you are treating me like this over a dead person. Changfeng, do you still have her in your heart? Enough." Lu Changfeng didn't want to keep arguing with her. His mind was completely consumed with the impending battle and that astronomical gap in military supplies. He shoved Lin Ruer aside, grabbed his cloak from the table, and strode out, "Ready my horse," to Jingsu Hui. No matter what, he had to meet this Mr. Ning today. Even if he had to get on his knees and beg, he would beg for those military supplies. This was his only hope left. On the third floor of Jingsu Hui, in the most elegant window-side tea room, I was holding the Black Stones playing a game against Old Master Zhou, a national Go champion from the capital city. Outside the window was the bustling Juke Avenue, and nothing happening downstairs could escape my eyes. When Lu Changfeng's face, written all over with haggardness and anxiety, appeared at the entrance of Jingsu Hui, I placed my final stone, and the game was decided. "Sir, your Go skills are exquisite, your strategies peculiar and ingenious. This old man is truly impressed." Old Master Zhou stroked his beard in admiration. I smiled faintly, stood up to see him off. "Old Master Zhou, you flatter me. It is already late today. Please take care on your way home." After seeing off Old Master Zhou, Qing'er came forward and said in a low voice, "Sir, General Lu has arrived and specifically asked to see you. The shopkeeper has kept him in the reception hall downstairs." I picked up my teacup, took a light sip. My tone indifferent. "Let him wait. Bring me that copy of Geography of Mountains and Rivers. I got this morning. I wanted to make him wait." The longer he waited, the more his spirit would be worn down, and the more advantageous the upcoming negotiation would be for me. 1 hour. 2 hours. The tea in the reception hall had been changed 7 or 8 times, long since turned from scalding hot to ice cold. Lu Changfeng went from initially fidgeting restlessly, to later pacing anxiously, to now sitting dejectedly. His proud bearing seemed to have been completely ground down by this long wait. When the door of the private room was finally pushed open, he suddenly looked up, a glimmer of hope bursting forth in his eyes. However, when he saw clearly who walked in, he froze. The visitor wore a moon-white robe, jade hairpin in his black hair, slender build, handsome features, yet bearing a somewhat sickly pallor. His eyes were as deep as ancient wells, revealing no emotion whatsoever. Could it really be such a young scholar? "You are Mr. Ning." Lu Changfeng stood up, his tone carrying a trace of disbelieving scrutiny. I didn't answer his question, walking straight to the main seat and sitting down. My voice 3 degrees colder than the cool tea. "General Lu, my time is precious. You have the time of 1 incense stick to explain your purpose." Such an arrogant attitude instantly ignited the anger Lu Changfeng had been suppressing for so long, but he glanced at the gradually darkening sky outside the window. thought of the hundreds of thousands of soldiers desperately waiting for supplies at the borderlands, and could only forcibly swallow this grievance. He took a deep breath and cupped his hands. "Mr. Ning, let's speak plainly. I've come today to purchase a batch of military supplies from you. As long as you are willing to name a price, money is negotiable." "Money?" I sounded as if I'd heard some kind of joke, letting out a soft laugh. "Does General Lu think the Shen family lacks money?" Lu Changfeng's fists instantly clenched tight. I picked up my teacup, gently skimmed off the floating foam with the lid without even lifting my eyelids. "General Lu Shen Yuaning was my sworn sister. Her body is barely cold, yet you forced the Shen family's bloodline to end. Do you think I would sell grain and fodder to an enemy who caused my sworn sister's death?" These words were like a resounding slap, striking hard across Lu Changfeng's face. His face flushed red as he tried to explain, "Yuaning's death was an accident. It wasn't what I wanted." "An accident?" I finally looked up at him, my gaze cold as a blade. "Then Lin Ruer entering your household as a proper wife, was that an accident? You getting her pregnant first, was that an accident? You having my sworn sister serve her tea in front of a hall full of guests, humiliating her and the Shen family behind her, was that also an accident?" With each sentence I spoke, Lu Changfeng's face turned a shade paler. He had never felt there was anything wrong with these things. But now, having this stranger, Master Ning, dissect them one by one in such an icy tone, he actually felt utterly ashamed. He fell silent, because he had no way to refute it. Watching his deflated appearance, I knew the moment had come. I shifted my tone, softening it slightly. "However, though I have a personal grudge against you, I still understand the greater duty to family and country. The soldiers at the borderlands are innocent." Hope rekindled in Lu Changfeng's eyes. "Do you mean, sir, I can sell to you?" I put down my teacup, stood up, walked in front of him, and looked down at him from above. "Not only can I sell you provisions, medicine, and weapons, I can even sell them to you at cost. I have only one condition." "What condition? Please speak, sir," Lu Changfeng asked urgently, as if grasping at his last lifeline. I extended one finger, pointing out the window toward the direction of the general's manor, and enunciated my condition word by word. "I want you to exchange the property deed and land deed of the Pacify the North General's manor for them." Lu Changfeng was struck as if by lightning, his entire body frozen in place. The Pacify the North General's manor, that was a residence bestowed by the Emperor himself. A symbol of his glory, the very foundation of his Lu family. You are taking advantage of a burning house," he said through gritted teeth, forcing the words out from between them. "Yes, I admitted it without evasion. I am taking advantage of a burning house, General Lu. You don't have to make the exchange, but I guarantee you, within 3 days, you won't be able to buy a single grain of rice in this capital city. When the time comes, whether you lead a starving, unarmed remnant army to the borderlands to die, or give up a mansion that is merely for show in exchange for the lives of hundreds of thousands of soldiers and your illustrious military achievements, you choose." I tossed the choice to him and turned to leave. "Wait," Lu Changfeng called out to me, his voice hoarse, filled with struggle and agony. He closed his eyes, veins bulging on his forehead, as if going through an intense internal struggle. After a long while, as if drained of all strength, he opened his eyes dejectedly. In those eyes that were once full of vigor and spirit, only gray defeat and humiliation remained. Facing me, his former wife and current enemy, he slowly, inch by inch, bent his proud knees with a thud. The great Qi war god, general who pacifies the North, Lu Changfeng, knelt down. "I'll exchange." Lu Changfeng's knees struck heavily against the cold, hard bluestone floor. The dull thud like a heavy hammer, shattering the last shred of dignity he had as the general who pacifies the North. I watched him quietly, my eyes showing not the slightest ripple. In my past life I had also knelt before him like this, begging him not to marry Lin Ruer, begging him to leave me a bit of dignity for the sake of our 3 years as husband and wife. But what did he say then? He said, "Shen Yuaning, your jealous appearance now is truly disgusting. The wheel of fate turns, karma never fails. Very good." I spoke slowly, my voice cold and clear. "Chinger, go fetch the contract we drafted." Chinger responded and left, soon returning with a document that had already been prepared. I unfolded the contract and pushed it in front of Lu Changfeng. Black characters on white paper, terms clearly laid out. Not only demanding he exchange ownership of the general's manor for military supplies, but also attached with a clause all servants in the manor, if willing to stay, would be taken in entirely by the Shen family. If they wished to leave, the Shen family would also provide severance pay for them to seek other livelihoods. I wanted to make him betrayed by everyone, truly becoming a man all alone. Lu Changfeng raised his head, his bloodshot eyes staring deadly at me. Those eyes filled with humiliation, venomous hatred, and a trace of confusion even he himself hadn't noticed. He couldn't figure out why this Mr. Ning, who appeared out of nowhere, would know his background so thoroughly, and why there would be such deep-seated hatred toward him. With trembling hands, he took the brush and signed his own name at the end of the contract. Those strokes that penetrated through the paper were like his heart being torn apart at this moment. The goods will be delivered to the military camp outside the city in 3 days. I put away the contract, didn't even look at him again, turned and walked back to the inner room. General Lu, you may leave now. Oh, right, let me remind you, within 3 days. Please move your people and all personal belongings out of the manor. After 3 days, that place will no longer be your home. My words, like a final blade quenched in ice, pierced through his heart. Without looking back, I could still imagine how he staggered away in a wretched state like a homeless dog. Sure enough, that very night, a earth-shattering drama unfolded at the Northern Suppression General's manor. When Lu Changfeng announced with a deathly pale face that this imperially bestowed mansion had changed hands, the entire Lu family exploded in chaos. The first to break down was Lin Ruer. What? Her shrill voice nearly lifted the roof off. You are selling the mansion, Changfeng? Have you lost your mind? This is the general's manor. This is our home. I am carrying your child in my belly. Where are we supposed to live after this? She could no longer maintain that gentle and lovable mask from before. Her face filled with panic and mean-spiritedness. She thought she had married into a gold mine, but never expected that this gold mine would turn into quicksand overnight. Shut up! For the first time, Lu Changfeng showed her a look of utter disgust. If it weren't for securing your pregnancy care, for maintaining the dignity you wanted in the mansion, how would I have fallen to this point today? If he hadn't drained the family's resources to satisfy Lin Ruer's extravagance, how could he have failed to produce even the first military supplies, only to have his lifeline seized and be driven into a corner? Regret gnawed at his heart like a viper, but it was all too late. You actually blame me. Lin Ruer clutched her chest, looking as if she were about to burst into tears. I am carrying your legitimate eldest son managing the household for you. Yet now you, legitimate eldest son, Lu Changfeng, let out a cold laugh, full of self-mockery. The family is gone, what is there to talk about a legitimate eldest son? If you were truly capable, you should be like Shen Yuaning, able to bring me mountains of gold and silver. Instead of just crying and sniveling, becoming my burden. His words that slipped out left both of them stunned. He was actually comparing her to that woman he had driven to death with his own hands. Lin Ruer's crying stopped abruptly. She looked at Lu Changfeng in disbelief. Her eyes filled with venomous resentment, and Lu Changfeng regretted it the instant the words left his mouth, feeling even more irritated. That seemingly unbreakable love between them finally shattered into a complete mess in the face of this cruel reality. Shortly after, old Madame Lu rushed over upon hearing the news. When she heard they had to move out of the general's manor, her eyes rolled back on the spot and she fainted. The entire manor was filled with crying, cursing, and shouting, turning into complete chaos. 3 days later, I appeared at the gates of the Pacification General's manor, right on time with Steward Fu and a group of Shen family guards. The plaque reading Pacification General's Manor still hung high on the vermilion lacquered gates, yet it seemed particularly ironic. I raised my hand, and Uncle Fu immediately understood. With a wave of his hand, 2 guards set up a ladder and mercilessly took down the plaque that symbolized the Lu family's supreme glory, casually tossing it to the ground. With a loud clang, dust flew everywhere. It also shattered the Lu family's last shred of dignity. Lu Changfeng and Lin Ruer, along with a crowd of Lu family members, stood inside the mansion, watching the scene helplessly. Behind them were several packed, shabby bundles. Dressed in black robes, I slowly stepped over the threshold. Every blade of grass, every tree, every brick and tile here, I was once intimately familiar with them all. This place was once the home I fantasized about growing old together with Lu Changfeng in, and also the grave where my heart shattered and broke in my past life. Now I stepped onto this land again as the victor. Mr. Ning, the steward in the mansion, along with all the servants, knelt before me in droves. They had long heard of the Shen family's generous terms, and no one was willing to follow their down-and-out masters into a life of wandering hardship. Everyone rise, I said indifferently, those willing to stay. Go register with Uncle Fu wages, and monthly allowances will all increase by 30%. Those who want to leave, go collect severance pay as well. Let's part on good terms. Thank you, sir. Everyone was overjoyed and kowtowed in unison. Lu Changfeng watched this scene of everyone turning against him. His body swaying unsteadily, his face looking even worse than a dead person's. Lin Ruwer was biting her lip hard, staring at me with eyes that looked like she wanted to swallow me alive. I didn't even bother to spare them a glance, walking straight toward the main hall and sitting down in the seat of honor. Uncle Fu? I picked up the hot tea the servants had just replaced, blowing on it gently, spread my words. This North pacifying general's manor has too much malevolent energy and is unfit for living. I, Mr. Ning, am charitable and willing to donate this estate to be rebuilt as the capital city women and children's care home, specifically to take in women and children abandoned by their husbands' families with nowhere to go. All expenses will be covered entirely by the Shen family. Lu Changfeng could hold it in no longer and spat out a mouthful of fresh blood, to turn the general's manor he was so proud of into a charity home for abandoned wives. This hurt him even more than killing him. From now on, whenever people mentioned this estate, they would think of Lu Changfeng's evil deeds of favoring his concubine and destroying his wife. They would praise Mr. Ning's benevolence, and then curse Lu Changfeng's incompetence and heartlessness. To kill someone, you must also destroy their heart. I was going to make him be nailed to the pillar of shame forever, never able to turn things around for all eternity. You are so ruthless. Lu Changfeng pointed at me, his finger trembling uncontrollably. I finally looked straight at him, the corners of my mouth curling into a cold arc. Ruthless. I said softly, compared to General Lu's methods of driving his lawful wife to death, what do my petty little tricks even count for? That very day, Lu Changfeng, along with his people, moved out of the general's manor in disgrace under the watchful eyes and pointing fingers of all the citizens of the capital city. The next morning at dawn, the army set out. Lu Changfeng sat on his horse, turning back to glance in the direction of the capital city. He seemed to see that manor which once belonged to him, now undergoing massive construction, while he, like a joke, was forced to rush toward a front line where life and death were uncertain. For the first time in his heart, he felt overwhelming regret for having driven Shen Yuaning to her death. Unfortunately, in this world, there has never been a medicine for regret. And I, standing atop the tallest tavern in the capital city, gazed from afar at his departing figure, raised my wine cup, and drained the strong liquor in one gulp. Lu Changfeng, this is only the beginning. Your battlefield is at the borderlands, while my battlefield is here in the capital city. Let's take our time and play. The news that the general's manor had changed hands and was being converted into a charity hall spread throughout the streets and alleys of the capital city overnight. As if it had grown wings, I, or rather, Master Ning, became the hottest topic in every tea house and tavern. Some say I have powerful connections and immense wealth. Some say I act recklessly without considering consequences, but more people, especially those women in the inner quarters of high-ranking households, see me as a living bodhisattva who vented their pent-up anger for them. On the first day, the plaque of Shen's Education Institute was hung up. A long queue formed at the entrance. Those abandoned women, those who suffered domestic violence, those who were mistreated, those with nowhere else to turn, they held their malnourished, sallow-faced children and timidly stood before the mansion that once intimidated them. When steaming hot meat porridge and clean, soft cotton clothes were handed to them, the sobs they had suppressed for so long echoed throughout Long Street. I stood by the window on the third floor, quietly watching it all. Behind me, Chinger said softly, "Sir, aren't we being too high-profile doing this?" High-profile? I chuckled lightly. Being high-profile is exactly what I want. I want everyone in the capital city to know that women don't have to depend on men to survive. I want Lu Changfeng's reputation to rot completely in the capital city's soil, to become synonymous with all heartless men. This education institute was the second cage I meticulously crafted for Lu Changfeng, an invisible cage woven from public opinion and morality. My plan had clearly provoked certain people. On the third day, Lin Ruer, with her protruding belly, dressed all in plain white, wearing a simple hairpin on her head, knelt at the entrance of the nursing home, crying pitifully. "I beg you, Mr. Ning, please show mercy and spare us orphans and widows," she wailed to the passing townsfolk. "The general is fighting for our country at the front, yet you seize his family estate from behind, forcing his wife and child to wander the streets homeless. Where is the justice in heaven?" She was quite clever, knowing to elevate family matters to national affairs, attempting to gain sympathy using her identity as a military dependent, trying to pin on me the big hat of disrupting military morale. Unfortunately, she miscalculated one thing. I never play by the rules. I didn't send anyone to drive her away. Instead, I walked out myself, followed by a woman, supported by a maid, with injuries on her face. I walked up to Lin Ruer, looking down at her from above, my tone as gentle as if comforting an ignorant child. "Madam, if you have nowhere to go, you may also come to my nursing home. I take in all pitiable people here." As soon as these words came out, the surrounding townsfolk immediately burst into whispered laughter, having the new lover move into a charity house prepared for abandoned wives. This was simply the most vicious irony under heaven. Lin Ruer's face instantly turned the color of pig liver. She hadn't expected me to be so shameless. Before she could say anything more, the woman beside me fell trembling to her knees, crying out to the crowd if it weren't for Mr. Ning taking us in. My 3-year-old child and I would have been beaten to death by that heartless husband long ago, just because I glanced at another man outside. He broke my leg. In this world, why must we women suffer such bitter fates? The woman's tearful accusation instantly pulled everyone's sympathy to its peak. Indeed, compared to the lament of a general's concubine, this kind of tragedy happening to common people was far more relatable. Look, that is Lin Ruer. She is the one who drove the general's legitimate wife to her death. Someone in the crowd shouted out, "That is right. Miss Shen family was such a good person, and she was literally driven to death by her. How dare this homewrecker come here crying, absolutely shameless." Public opinion instantly reversed. Lin Ruer became a despised rat everyone wanted to attack. She never imagined that the carefully planned show she put on would become my stepping stone. Amid the chorus of curses, she was supported by her maidservants and fled in utter disgrace. The matter blew up so big that it quickly reached the palace. The next day, a memorial from a censor was delivered to the Imperial study, impeaching me for being a merchant who uses profit to coerce others, seizing the general's manor of the Northern Pacification General through cunning means, shaking the foundation of the state, and disturbing military morale. The wording was extremely severe. For a moment, the entire court was filled with tension and fear. Everyone thought that I, a newly risen power player in the capital city, was about to face great misfortune. However, when the summoning eunuch from the palace came before me, I merely calmly changed into a set of plain clothes and went to the appointment without fear. Inside the Imperial study, the smoke of dragon's ambergris incense swirled about. The emperor, over 50 years old, sat upon the dragon throne, his face grave as water, revealing neither joy nor anger. I knelt down to pay my respects, neither humble nor arrogant. "Ning Yu," the emperor's voice carried a trace of scrutiny. "Lift your head." I raised my head as instructed. He probably wanted to see some guilt and fear on my face, but he was disappointed. My gaze was calm as water, even carrying a hint of an elusive smile. "Do you know your crime? This commoner does not know." I replied in a clear voice. This commoner's transaction with General Liu was ****, number **** in black and white. Mutually consensual, he devoted himself loyally to the country, choosing military supplies over his family estate. This is an act of loyal courage. What crime is there? This commoner admires the general's loyalty and righteousness. and therefore converted this estate into a charity hall to shelter the destitute, to share your majesty's burdens, and to pray for blessings upon the realm. What crime is there in that? With these words, I forcibly transformed what was a transaction taking advantage of someone's misfortune into an act of loyalty and righteousness between ruler and subject. I blocked off every possible excuse the emperor could use to hold me accountable. The emperor was silent for a long time, his sharp gaze sweeping over me. He of course knew the truth of the matter, but he was even more aware that with the national treasury now empty and the war at the front pressing, the Shen family behind me, wealthy enough to rival a nation, absolutely could not be offended. Finally, he slowly spoke, his tone softening. What you say does have some merit. Your heart in sharing the nation's concerns is commendable. He picked up a scroll of Imperial edict from the table and handed it to the eunuch beside him. Transmit my decree, the Shen Family Education Institute harbors benevolent virtue and bestows grace upon all people. It is hereby specially bestowed the name Imperial Women's Welfare Hall and awarded 1,000 taels of gold as encouragement. As for the censor's memorial, it was a misunderstanding and need not be discussed further. I sneered coldly in my heart, but on my face put on an appearance of grateful tears, kowtowing in thanks. Thank you for your majesty's great kindness. The moment I walked out of the imperial palace, the afternoon sunlight shone on me, yet I felt not a trace of warmth. I knew this was only a temporary victory. The emperor who could protect me today for the sake of profit could abandon me tomorrow for the same. In this game of power, I must possess more and more important bargaining chips. Returning to the mansion, Chinger handed me a carrier pigeon. I untied the message tube. Inside was only a small slip of paper. Written with a special potion that would appear when exposed to fire, I brought the paper close to the candlelight, and a line of writing slowly emerged. The fish has entered the net, just waiting to reel in the line. Looking at those words, the corner of my mouth finally curved into a truly cold smile. Lu Changfeng, did you think the military supplies I gave you were meant to help you win battles? Number, they're your death warrant, sending you straight to hell. Your time is running out. A month after Lu Changfeng led his troops to war, the capital city remained calm and peaceful. Under my management, the Royal Women's Refuge had already taken shape. I took in more and more women and children, even some divorced women who had modest family assets, but were bullied by their in-laws came with their dowries to seek refuge. I taught them to read and write, taught them embroidery and accounting, made them understand that a woman's life doesn't have only one path of depending on men. For a time, Master Ning's reputation for unparalleled righteousness overshadowed all the romantic affairs in the capital city. As for Lin Ruer, after that last self-inflicted humiliation, she completely disappeared from sight. My people reported that she'd been taken by Lu Changfeng's clansmen to a rundown estate outside the city to nurture her pregnancy, living a tight existence where even wanting a bowl of bird's nest soup meant enduring people's moods. All of this was under my control. Every day I sat in the quiet chamber on the top floor of Jinsu Hui, appearing to burn incense and savor tea, but in reality waiting for hawks and falcons from the northern frontier. Every secret letter sent from Sparrow, my mole planted in the army, was personally soaked by me in specially made potion to reveal the hidden text, then personally thrown into the fire basin to turn to ash. The 7th of September, an epidemic ravaged the army. 30% of the soldiers suffered from vomiting and diarrhea, their bodies completely drained of strength. Lu Changfeng believed it was due to acclimatization and ordered the military physicians to urgently prepare decoctions to dispel dampness. The 13th of September, a small skirmish with the barbarian vanguard camp. Our army's weapons were severely damaged. Several officers' swords and blades shattered on the spot, 27 men killed in action. Lu Changfeng flew into a rage and ordered a thorough investigation of the armaments, but to no avail. The 20th of September, complaints filled the wounded soldiers' camp. The wound medicine distributed was not only ineffective but caused wounds to fester and ooze pus. Nearly 100 men had already died from untreatable wounds. The morale of the troops was in chaos, all saying that heaven had brought an ill omen. I looked at the handwriting on the letter, the corner of my mouth curling into an icy smile. That batch of grain, I had deliberately ordered people to mix 30% of moldy old rice into the new rice. It rotted from the core of each grain. enough to completely rob an army of its combat strength after a long march. As for that wound medicine, I had carefully mixed it myself, adding ingredients that would accelerate the rotting of flesh and skin. And those weapons, I had tampered with their forging technique. They appeared sharp and sturdy, but in reality, as long as they experienced high-intensity impact, they would shatter at their weakest points. What I sent to Lu Changfeng was never any life-saving military supplies. It was a coffin meticulously crafted for him and the tens of thousands of soldiers under his command. And now, the lid of this coffin was about to close. The 25th of September, the barbarian Chanyu assembled his main forces and set an ambush at Wolf Howl Valley, cutting off our army's supply route. Lu Changfeng was forced into a desperate situation and wished to fight to the death. The final battle is imminent. Seeing these last 8 words, I slowly stood up and walked to the window. The north wind swept up the cold air. Autumn in the capital city had arrived. Chinger, I called out softly. Sir, what are your orders? Prepare the carriage, prepare fast horses, and prepare that red cloak of mine. I looked at the bleak autumn scenery outside the window, my voice calm and unwavering. We're going north to bring an old friend home. 7 days later, Wolf Howl Valley. This place had just experienced an extremely brutal massacre. The setting sun was blood red, staining the entire canyon a shocking dark crimson. Broken banners, shattered weapons, and mutilated corpses covered the earth. The north wind howled past, stirring up waves of nauseating bloody stench and desperate wails. The great Xi's northern suppression army had been completely annihilated. I sat on my horse, standing atop the hill, followed by a team of elite Shen family guards. We were all dressed in barbarian clothing. This was the disguise that allowed me to pass safely through this battlefield of death. I quietly watched the final, desperate struggle of the cornered beast in the valley below. Lu Changfeng was covered in blood, his armor long since shattered beyond recognition. He leaned on a long spear broken in half, kneeling among the mountain of corpses and sea of blood, gasping for breath in great gulps. Beside him, only the last few loyal personal guards remained, forming a circle to fend off the tide of barbarian soldiers surging toward them. He had lost. Lost utterly and completely, lost without any dignity. The light in his eyes had been completely extinguished, leaving only endless regret and despair. Even until his death, he probably couldn't understand why his elite troops, which he took such pride in, had become so vulnerable. I raised my hand, and the captain of my guard immediately understood, taking out a specially made signal arrow from his chest and shooting it toward the sky. After a sharp whistling sound, a brilliant blue firework exploded in the dusky sky. That was the signal between me and the barbarian Chanyu. Seeing the signal, the barbarian army that had been pressing forward step by step suddenly retreated like an ebbing tide, slowly pulling back and finally stopping 100 paces away, forming a huge encirclement that trapped Lu Changfeng and his men in the center, but advancing no further. This sudden turn of events left Lu Changfeng and his few remaining subordinates stunned. They couldn't understand why these cruel enemies had suddenly stopped. While they were filled with shock and doubt, I spurred the fine horse beneath me and slowly descended from the hill clop. Clop! Clop! The crisp sound of horse hooves echoed with particular clarity across the deathly silent battlefield. The fiery red cloak on my body fluttered and snapped in the bitter, cold wind, like a flame burning atop a pile of corpses. Lu Changfeng raised his eyes, filled with blood and despair, looking toward this slowly approaching sole glimmer of life. He couldn't see my face clearly, but that red garment felt incredibly familiar to him. So familiar it caused a stabbing pain in his chest. I rode my horse up to him, pulled the reins, and looked down at him from above, like looking down at an ant. Then I slowly raised my hand and removed the veil from my face. When my face was fully exposed under the glow of the setting sun, Lu Changfeng was struck as if by lightning, completely frozen in place. The broken spear in his hand clattered to the ground. His eyes bulged wide as copper bells. His lips trembled, yet he couldn't utter a single word. That blood-stained face was filled with utter shock, terror, and disbelief. Shen Yuan Ning, his hoarse voice as if scraped by sandpaper, was filled with a sense of unreality. Watching him look as if he'd seen a ghost, I slowly smiled that smile. On this battlefield resembling an Ashura hell appeared both sinister and cruel. General Lu, it has been a while. My vermilion lips parted slightly. The words that came out were even colder and more piercing than the freezing wind of the northern frontier. Do you like this lavish gift to the underworld I've carefully prepared for you? The color drained from Lu Changfeng's face in an instant, leaving him even paler than the corpses at his feet. Ghost, you are a ghost. A rattling sound came from his throat, as if an invisible hand was choking him. The last trace of sanity in his eyes was finally devoured by sheer terror. You died long ago. I watched you get buried with my own eyes. Yes, I died. I slowly dismounted from the horse, my red cloak trailing across the blood-soaked ground like a blooming, sinful spider lily. On that snowy night when you married Lin Ruer, when you drove me to heart rupture and death by hemorrhage, I already died then. Each of my steps felt like I was treading on his heart, but I hate you. I walked up to him, crouched down, and looked straight into his glazed pupils. My voice was as soft as a lover's whisper. I hate that you were blind to people's true nature. I hate that you favored your concubine and destroyed your wife, and I hate even more that you killed our child who wasn't even 3 months old with your own hands. Lu Changfeng, hell is too cold, so I've crawled back to collect the blood debt you owe me. A child, he muttered to himself, as if hearing those words for the first time, his face showing a blank expression. In my past life, when I miscarried, he was accompanying Lin Ruer to enjoy the snow in the outskirts. Until my death, he never knew he once had a child. Can't remember? I smiled. But the smile didn't reach my eyes. It is fine. I'll help you remember. I stood up, my voice suddenly turning cold, echoing through the entire valley. You think it was unfavorable timing, that disease ravaged the army. No, that was the grain I sent you. Every single grain meticulously treated with the finest mold. You think the weapons bureau cut corners, that the swords and blades were fragile? No, those were made by skilled craftsmen I found. Custom-made death charms just for you. You think the military doctors were incompetent. That the wound medicine became a bone-scraping knife. No, that was the 7-day bone rot I personally concocted, specially made to add a festering fire to the countless bones of your northern garrison army. My words struck him like thunderbolts, splitting down on his skull. The fear on his face gradually turned into bone-deep despair. He finally understood that from the moment he stepped into the capital city's tallest building seeking help, he had already stepped into a trap woven, like an inescapable net, tailor-made just for him. He had lost not to the barbarians on the battlefield, but to this ex-wife who he had driven to death with his own hands and who had returned from hell. Why, he used up his last bit of strength to roar out these words. Why? I felt like I'd heard the funniest joke in the world. That question you should go ask my child who died an unjust death. Ask Shen Yuening, who bled out her last drop of blood in the snow. Just then, the barbarian army parted to form a path, and a burly man with a full beard strode over. He was none other than the barbarian chieftain. Temujin, he walked up to me, and under Lu Changfeng's disbelieving gaze, knelt on one knee and said respectfully in broken Chinese, "Master, everything has been handled according to your orders." This single act of kneeling completely shattered Lu Changfeng's last psychological defense. The military achievements he took such pride in, his dignity as the general who pacifies the north in this moment. They were crushed until not even dust remained. He hadn't been defeated by an evenly matched opponent. He was merely a chess piece casually manipulated and casually discarded by his former wife. TFFT, he suddenly spat out a large mouthful of black blood, and the light in his eyes completely extinguished. He lay on the ground like a dead dog, muttering over and over, "Retribution, it is all retribution." I couldn't be bothered to look at him even once more. I turned around and mounted my horse again. Temujin, I ordered coolly, clean this up properly. Remember, General Lu Changfeng of the northern garrison colluded with the enemy and betrayed the nation, reaped what he sowed. Understood? This subordinate understands. I never looked back again, letting the screams behind me be scattered by the wind stop. I need to drink some water and take a breather. The barbarian chieftain calls her master. The war god of great Qi is now sprawled on the ground spitting black blood. The general's wife, who was once asked to serve tea to the mistress in the main hall of the general's manor, is now standing on the battlefield directing the cleanup operation without even turning her head once. This plot twist knocked me right off my chair. Sisters, this isn't a revenge power fantasy. This is a comprehensive epic combining business warfare, military strategy, and diplomacy, all in one General Lu. What about your life? Oh right, it is gone, half a month later. News that the Northern Garrison Army was completely annihilated and that the commanding general Lu Chengfeng had colluded with the enemy and committed treason reached the capital city, shocking the entire nation. However, before the court and public could be thrown into turmoil, a peace treaty jointly signed by Mr. Ning and the barbarian chieftain was delivered to the Imperial presence by an express courier. The treaty stipulated that the barbarian tribes would withdraw 100 Lai and would not invade the border again for 10 years. Meanwhile, Great Qi only needed to open 3 trading ports as a gesture of goodwill. This was an unprecedented great victory. In the Imperial study, the Emperor stared at that treaty for an entire night. At dawn the next day, 3 Imperial edicts were issued in succession. The first one posthumously honored the entire Shen family as loyal martyrs and bestowed upon them a plaque reading "Righteous Merchants." The second decree denounced Lu Chengfeng as a traitor to the nation with his clan exiled 3,000 li away, forbidden from returning to the court for all eternity. The third decree conferred upon Mr. Ning the title of Duke Protector of the nation with a fief of 10,000 households, his status equivalent to that of a prince. No one knew the true identity of Mr. Ning. They only knew that this Duke Protector who emerged out of nowhere used thunderous methods to end a war that could have shaken the foundation of the state, securing at least 10 years of peace for Great Qi, and I stood atop the highest tower in the capital city, gazing down at this prosperous land below. The day the Lu clan members were escorted out of the city, I sent someone to visit Lin Ruar. Upon hearing the news of Lu Chengfeng's collusion with the enemy and treason, she was struck with shock and fear on the spot, disturbing her pregnancy. With blood flowing ceaselessly, she lost the child in her crazed and delirious state. She was ultimately abandoned by the furious Lady Lu clan members on the exile road, left to fend for herself. The vengeance of my past life, the grievances of this life with this. The dust has settled, Xinger stood behind me, draping a white fox fur cloak over me to ward off the cold wind. Sir, it is getting cold. I nodded, my gaze reaching beyond the palace halls, looking toward the peak of the forbidden city that symbolized supreme power. Yes, I said softly, it is getting cold. It is time to usher in a new world. Lu Chengfeng was only the beginning of my path of revenge, and I, Shen Yuaning, my life has only just begun. In this life, I will not only be master of myself, but master of this world. Equal wife was a special existence in the ancient marriage system, referring to a concubine whose status was equivalent to or close to that of the legal wife. In feudal ritual law, one husband, one wife, and multiple concubines was the orthodox regulation, and there could only be one legal wife. The concept of equal wife was not officially recognized by the ritual system. However, in actual life, some powerful figures or wealthy merchants, in order to accommodate women with influential backgrounds, would use the title of equal wife while essentially taking them as concubines, granting them treatment similar to that of the legal wife, such as marrying them with formal wedding ceremonies and allowing them to enjoy clothing regulations of the legal wife, thereby elevating their status while indirectly suppressing the legal wife.